Welcome to the first official episode of Rebels Cast. And this time, we have the whole crew here.
That's right. We are 4 people strong.
Nikki.
Yes. Hello.
Nick.
Hello.
And finally, Josh.
Hello.
And we are finally here talking Rebels. I've been looking forward to this, for I don't know how long. So I think before we get going, I thought we might, do a few news stories. One, even before the premiere, it was renewed for a second season.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That shows a lot of faith.
Yeah, and I think just kind of some, just the kind of the fan reaction and some of the screenings. I think people they just kind of had a feeling that they just might as well go ahead and renew it.
Yeah, and that's good because I think from a writer standpoint, it's good for them because they know. Hey, we don't
have to wrap this up real quick.
We've got at least 2 seasons. Right. We can span it out. We don't have to be like, well, we may only get 1, season, so we might as well film the ending, and then 8 years later it won't make any sense. But hey, he's going to end up with Robin because that's what we were going to do. Not that I'm bitter about that show still, but I'm just saying.
I saw the alternate ending, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Well, anything would be.
Yeah,
right on.
I think it shows a lot of faith, and I agree that it really frees up the writers to explore more storylines and go to more places because we don't have to condense it all into, a 13 to 22 episode series.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Another thing, another article is that the ratings was 6.5 million on Disney XD. I'm not exactly familiar with Disney XD. But it sounds pretty darn good to me.
Yeah, I read, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong on this because I'm not a math person, but that it was actually the numbers were a little that number is what it was, but that number was a little lower than what the premiere for the Clone Wars was back in 2008. But Cartoon Network is like a basic cable channel.
Well, and two, you're not coming off of a theatrical film either.
Yeah, it's true.
It's you had a lot of promotion over that. It could have been more, I think. But you had the
and it was our first animated series for a while.
Yeah, it was
so there was a lot more. Oh my gosh, we're finally getting another Clone Wars because the original Clone Wars series only went 2 seasons.
Yeah, and they were. You put it all together, and it was it 1 hour or 2 hours for the entire Tartakovsky?
I think it was. I think it was more like 2 hours because the second season was the episodes were a lot longer.
Yeah, they were 10 or 15 minutes or something like that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so yeah, it was and wow, this is ongoing, and this is Star Wars is really continuing, and so yeah, that I think excitement, and yeah, because even if you don't have. If you've got cable, you probably have the Cartoon Network, but you may not have Disney Channel, let alone Disney XD, because you could have Disney Channel without having Disney XD. So I think just the number of people that have the channel to watch it is less. So that's probably a pretty stinking good number, given that you've got fewer people to draw from.
Right.
I don't know.
And does that include the DVR?
Oh, actually, no.
Too?
This is the whole world.
Yeah. Okay. So, and yeah, Jonathan, does that include the people that maybe watch it on the app and that sort of thing, or is it just the?
I don't think so.
Okay.
On Wikipedia, they have the U.S. viewers per million. This is the Nielsen rating.
Yeah.
It's 2.74.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, Nielsen's in a lot of trouble right now too. So their numbers have been off since March.
It doesn't have something to
do with
They said that
they haven't been accurate since March.
Wow.
We don't know if it's accurate. They're skewing better or they're skewing lower. So there's a lot of series that might have been canceled because Nielsen showed such low viewership, but in actuality, they actually had pretty decent numbers.
I have not heard of this scandal.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think it just came today. It just came out today.
Wow.
So the news, it was on Huffington Post, and it was just really scary because I'm a big Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, and we were really scared that we weren't getting the numbers, but it turns out, well, Nielsen was off, so who knows what the numbers really were.
I wonder if that excuse could go all the way back to the NBC Knight Rider show, and we could use that as an excuse to bring that show back.
No, they said it would happen in March.
Curses, because Knight Rider was definitely before March, because that would have made me happy
a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, just by like 5 years or so. But yeah, but I'm interested. You always have to have. I had to buy it on iTunes, so you always, the Spark Rebellion, I had to buy it on iTunes because I couldn't get the channel, and then so there's always how many downloads does it have, how many people DVR'd it and watched it later, and like you said, not a lot of people have Disney XD. I mean, it's not part of the basic package, even on DirecTV, which I have.
So there you go. So, I mean, really, if you think about that, if it's not taking into account the downloads and like for Josh and I, we watched it on the Watch Disney XD app. Yeah. Because we've got the charter thing, and so we were able to log in and watch it. So, I mean, I figure there's a decent number of people that are watching it that way. So, I bet if that number is just the number for sort of traditional watchers all over the world, then hopefully it's a better number. But I mean, like I say, hey, we got 2 seasons worth regardless. So
right. Yeah, they're stuck with it. So you just hope that they go, well, we could do whatever we want for 2 seasons, and nobody can do anything. And they'll give us, really crappy stories. But I don't think that they're going to do that based on the writing talent that they've lined up so far.
So one more news article, and that for a few days now, we've had the list of the Star Wars Rebels being re-aired on ABC, and that there would be a appearance of Darth Vader, and it's been confirmed today, or at least IGN released an article that James Earl Jones is going to be voicing Vader, the CG Vader.
Right.
So it's pretty exciting.
I posted that on the Radio Free Andor Facebook and Twitter page last night. I was so excited. It just, fine. I love the continuity, and I love that this show is not, beholden to original characters, like to the characters we all know. Mm-hmm. It's giving us new characters, but they're also giving us, oh, look, there's Obi-Wan, oh, look, there's Darth Vader kind of thing. But the focus is not on, let's look at what Anakin is doing now. Let's look at what Obi-Wan is doing. Oh, let's see Boba Fett again. And so
although I've got to admit, I would
kind
of like that to happen. I mean, I kind of want to see Obi-Wan a lot.
I would love to see Obi-Wan and Boba. I would love to see the Fett, but I like making new character friends. So I think it helps broaden the universe.
Yeah, and Josh, you were saying that when you read about the Darth Vader, that you got like big 3-year-old, 5-year-old grin.
Yeah, I got like the goofiest grin on my face, and nobody was there to see it. But yeah, that made me pretty happy. Yeah, because it made me think too, like how often is that going to happen? Because we know that there's going to be more Vader at some point.
Right.
Now, whether or not it'll be in a huge capacity or not, but is this just a one-time thing, or
is he going to show up every now and then?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, and it's like we've already got Vader. We know we're getting Vader. We already have Obi-Wan. We know Lando's coming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've already got a nice little smattering. But it's like you said, Nicki, it's nice that it's a combination of the old and the new.
You don't want to rely too heavily on Darth Vader, because he wasn't the only bad guy in the galaxy, and that's why I like this new bad guy that we have. But I just think it's important to explore, and Vader can't be everywhere that these kids are. This ragtag group of rebels are. He's kind of ruling the galaxy at the moment, and I can only imagine that he's very busy. And he has to delegate to a lot of his admirals, though I don't want to be an admiral under Vader because they tend to get choked out.
Yeah. You did not put the toilet seat down. I'm tired of your failure.
I'll have the pasta alla arrabbiata. So you have to have a tray. What? Sorry. Eddie Izzard did a great bit on Vader in the Death Star canteen.
Nice.
I highly they said it. Somebody said it to Legos, so I highly recommend you find it on YouTube.
to look that up.
It is hysterically funny.
So you guys want to hop into the episode?
Let's do it.
So the episode is called Spark of Rebellion, and it's directed by Stuart Lee and Stephen G. Lee, and written by Simon Kigberg, airing on October 3rd, 2014. So like Nicki said, major talent. A lot of people are coming over from the Clone Wars television show. A lot of people that have worked under the maker himself, now being led by the Filoni. So, in general, what do you guys think of this episode?
Excellent.
Special.
It was better than I expected because there were some episodes of Clone Wars that I was kind of about, which I think happens in any series. There's always going to be a weak episode here and there, but this just gave me so much hope for this series. Like, oh my God, the writing is so spot on, and the animation looks great, and I think they have a really great background for this. And I especially love that the guys from Horse came over, and because they have the experience and they know what they're doing, and they know how to make a Star Wars animated series great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just watching a little episode like on iTunes, and I could just see like little Ezra just like looking out towards the field, just like Luke, and then you see something that's different. You see a Star Destroyer just like going overhead, and just seeing how like.
I love seeing what we never saw, like the worlds we never saw in the original trilogy and the prequels, and exploring the galaxy some more because it's so vast, and we only got to see like one tiny little part of it. So I like seeing them explore new places and new ideas and new beings.
And I also kind of like the fact that in addition to all that, we're in space.
Yeah.
Because for as much as it's called Star Wars, and this is the case with some of the films and some of the episodes of Clone Wars, for as much as it's called Star Wars, a lot of times they're on a planet, they're not amongst the stars. And that's fine, but I love space stuff. So the fact that a lot of times they're going to be on this ship, and they're going from hopping from star system to star system. I mean, I know Lothal, is it Lothal or Lothal? I guess it's a Star Wars thing. We can say it however we want, right? Because pronunciations don't matter.
Han and Han.
Han and Han.
Falcon and Falcon.
Falcon and Falcon. Was it Naboo and Naboo?
Yeah.
Right. There's a
Post.
Yeah. You just kind of do whatever you want. Yeah.
It's your choice.
So,
Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan.
No one ever called him Obi-Wan.
Was he pale or something?
He was crying, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan. Oh, I'm tired. Leave me alone. Go to bed.
He doesn't like the hovel anymore. He needs new curtains.
Something to bring the room together.
A nice rug.
Yeah, exactly. That's
rug
what
really tied.
Donnie, that rug tied the whole room together. All right, got some Lebowski reference going on. But yeah, it's like the fact that they're in a ship. We're getting to see say that just that whole element of the space thing is kind of nice. In addition to all the other awesomenesses.
Oh yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about both the episodes, just in general, in this whole feel of the original trilogy, like it feels like it. But at the same time, and we talked a little bit about this on the last episode of the Clone Cast, but like it's this perfect bridging of the gap between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. Like it's got that like more fantasy feel and the more hardcore tech world of 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, it really is a good balance. And musically, visually, obviously visually we're closer to the original trilogy, and that just makes sense. But and even just from an animation style, I know that it's not exactly the Clone Wars look, but there are elements of the painterly vibe a little bit. The character's more
everybody's
rounded,
textured looking. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, like their skin has this kind of texture thing going on, and it's one of those things that when I saw the trailers, like everybody else, I thought on the one hand, I'm excited about it, but it looks like maybe the animation isn't as detailed, and it probably still isn't, but there's more detail and nuance in it than I think originally it appeared that there was. So that's kind of been a nice thing to watch, and still the fluidity of the animation and everything is great. And so you're bridging all of these different things, the feel and the look, and of course Ezra's last name is Bridger. Yeah. I think that was one of those purposeful Star Wars names, like Han Solo because he's by himself except for the dog, or Darth Maul because he will maul you, and Darth Sidious because he's insidious, and Count Dooku because he had too many bean burritos. Every name means something. Grievous because he's grievous. So see, it all makes sense. So he's Ezra Bridger. He bridges the two.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I know. It's another thing. As far as I think one thing to say is that unfortunately, when you with the transfer of power to Disney and all that, in this kind of case, we have a small cut in the budget.
Right.
But I think, after a while, as the time goes on, they'll start to get the animation much better because I kind of tell Ezra's hair looks a little bit like tentacles. So,
and I wonder if some of that is going to be a matter of stylistic choice, and how much of that is going to be a matter of, kind of getting comfortable with the animation. And if it's anything like Clone Wars, I remember back in the day, how they would talk in the first season about it was just a matter of trying to get all of our toys. It was just modeling. I mean, they were just trying to model different characters so they would have enough, people for the background and that sort of thing. And if you watch the Clone Wars film, it's, like different heads on the same body, and that sort of thing. And so you figure, it's kind of like you say, Jonathan, that some of that stuff will get polished up because now they're just trying to kind of make sure that they've got the basics and the details. Like, I know this is skipping ahead just a little bit, but in the Droids episode, there's a couple of characters that are on the bus or the Star Tours ship that were also in the Tarkin Town in Spark of Rebellion, and one of them, in fact, Come on down to Tarkin Town, and one of them looks like the Star Killer, the concept art for Luke,
right.
That's kind of George's, which I think is just really neat that they put that in. I mean, it's because it's partially an homage to why am I blanking on his name?
Ralph
McQuarrie. Thank you. Yes, sorry, Ralph McQuarrie. It's kind of an homage to him, but it's also an homage to George. But people were saying, they're reusing the same people. Well, yeah, I'm sure they're going to have to a little bit at first, but I think they'll get in the groove of it, and maybe some of those things will kind of polish up, and then simulation of clothing and hair, that sort of thing. Right. Well, I think you're right, though, Jonathan. I mean, I think we are going to have to expect some differences just from what appears to be a budgetary standpoint. It's kind of like the music. Right. Are my ears deceiving me, or is it the case? Obviously, in the Clone Wars, I'm sure there was some synth stuff in there, but there was a lot of real instruments as well. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Rebels, the synth quality is a little bit more obvious. It's not bad at all.
No.
But it's just you can tell that if they've got real musicians with real instruments, there's maybe fewer of them. Yeah. Than on Clone Wars. But Kinder's doing such a great job with the music that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the budget. I mean, when you work for Disney, Disney is pretty much the best in animation and the new computer technology around animation, them and Pixar. And when you're doing a episodic series like this, you have to churn out the product a lot faster than you churn out a film. So you don't have the same budget you do on a film. You also don't have the same time to do every strand of hair.
Right.
So I think a lot of the clumps of Bridger's of Ezra's hair, like Jonathan was saying, was like tentacle-like. I think it's because they don't have the time to go in and animate every strand of hair, like they did in like Rapunzel or they do in the Pixar films. So you get kind of that hair helmet kind of look like you got on the Clone Wars. If you look at Obi-Wan and Anakin's hair, it didn't really move. It was like they were like action figures in a sense.
Everybody looked wooden.
Yes. And I like that the style is similar, but it's not the same because, like I said, Disney, you're going to have different animators and you're going to have different standards because their standards are a lot higher than maybe, Lucasfilms were in the sense of, animation and how fast we get these things out.
And I think, too, with Clone Wars, they were kind of building an animation department. Lucasfilm Animation really hadn't done anything before before Clone Wars. So, whereas with Disney...
They lost Pixar because Pixar went off on its own because that was a Lucasfilm property.
Right, exactly, yeah. So they were kind of having, well, we don't have Pixar anymore, so now we got to make our own thing, whereas now, like you say, there's this sort of already, their infrastructure to be able to animate and kind of get up quickly. But then, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see the development. But I think in some ways there's attention to detail in the first episode of Rebels that wasn't there in some places in the Clone Wars film.
Right.
You know, there are places where I distinctly remember watching. Maybe we just saw this at first in the trailer, but then when I was seeing it in the theater, like there's one shot early on there when they're still in Christophsis, and Obi-Wan's jumping and slicing some battle droids, and you can tell that his eyes aren't looking at anything.
Yeah,
like
Right.
his head is moving and his eyes are just directly in front of him. You know, whereas by the end of the show, you know, characters look at stuff. So little things like that, but like I didn't notice that in Rebels. It wasn't like, you know, Zeb's got dead eyes. You know, that didn't happen.
They all had a brightness to them. Like their characters were very much, I think, more human looking than they were on Clone Wars. And I like that a lot because as much as I like a stylized animation style, like I love the animation in like Sleeping Beauty because it's not something you ever saw in any of the other Disney animated films of the time.
Right.
I like that stylistic choice. And sometimes you need that so you're not blending into every other animated series that's out there right now.
Right.
So I like that it has its unique look. It's different from the Clone Wars, but yet it pays respect to where it came from.
Right. But less hair gel.
Less hair gel, yes. They need to get some heavy-duty hairspray for Ezra.
You need to put it all over them Wookiees.
That's right. All those poor Wookiees. I think the Wookiees needed a bath. It's like, boys, our fur is matted down. We need to shower. We need to bathe a little bit more often. Don't just do it every year on Life Day.
You greasy boy. That's right. Greasy.
You know?
Maybe they had so much hairspray in their fur that it just didn't move.
That's right. This is left over from the Clone Wars, buddy. I don't know what you're talking about. Rah, rah, I can't help it.
I love how the Wookiees, they just kind of put up with people calling them fur balls. Get in there, you fur balls.
They probably call each other fur balls.
It's like,
in their language. That's probably a term of endearment. Like, you fur ball.
It's like Wookiees when they're getting married. I love you, furball. I love you too.
It's like calling a guy. It's like calling a guy a Nerf herder. You know, it's a term of endearment.
That's right. Who's scruffy looking? So, when do you think we'll see Han? I don't know. I'm sorry. You just wonder if
a
he'll
very
ever
young
show up.
Han.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it wouldn't be very young.
He'd be what, like
he'd be in his 20s. Yeah,
20s-ish.
If he was the same age Harrison was when these were being filmed, or around the same age. I don't know. I kind of don't want to see them take on the original, like the trilogy characters, except for like Darth Vader, who's, you know, with the mask and the portable asthmatic lung collapsible, you know, iron lung machine that he wears. I kind of want some of those characters to stay the way I remember them. You know, it's like, we don't really need to see a young Leia. We're not really talking about those characters. We're talking about this group of characters right here. I mean, we saw Bail. I mean, well, I guess we shouldn't say that because we're not talking about that episode yet.
The only thing that I would like to see as far as, you know, like say bringing Han in is basically the story of how he and Chewbacca met. Because apparently, you know, that was something that George was like, you know, no, that's off limits. Nobody can tell this because that's something I want to do. So, like, if they decided, okay, this is the perfect outlet for that, do it. Yeah, do it.
Yeah. But other than that, I agree.
I would not mind. I would not mind that explained, but I'm kind of hoping for a Han Solo standalone film, like when he's like in the Academy, in the Imperial Navy, and, you know, Academy, and that's where historically.
If that's canon.
That's right. You never know.
If that's canon.
You never know with George.
But it may not be canon.
The maker has this. I know, but I still like to think it's canon because I think it's a great story and it shows that Han's not just, you know, out for himself. It shows that he, you know, he has a heart.
Well, and that would be interesting, you know, is thinking about what the introduction to each character is sort of in Star Wars as a whole. You know, when is going to be the first time that we see Han Solo? Is our very first introduction to him going to be, you know, Chewie here tells me you're looking at the passage to Alderaan, or is it going to be, you know, him in his younger days? I think the moment when we first meet a character is a big deal, which I guess in some ways will eventually bring us back into this actual episode of Rebels because, you know, it's the introductions, you know, that are so critical.
Right.
So,
and I think they introduced them all perfectly because you got to see them all in kind of, you know,
Yeah, I mean, like Hera.
Me.
Nicki?
You're sort of fading in and out of us, Nicki. We're only catching bits and pieces of what you're saying.
Come back to the light.
Don't go away from the light. You don't want her to die.
No, I don't want to go to
Jonathan.
the light.
You killer. Killer.
What were you going to say, Jonathan, about Hera?
Okay, well, I was just saying that she's kind of this motherly figure. How, you get this kind of thing where, they say she says your whole name. If she gets onto you, it's like, she says Zeb's, like, whole name. Like, Zeb is short for,
like Zebber, Dibber. No, but yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah. Well, and wasn't it, I think it was Simon Kinberg in the interview on StarWars.com talked about how their basic thought process for the main characters was they're a family. So you've kind of got the parental units with Kanan and Hera, and then you've got...
It's Firefly in Star Wars.
It's Firefly in space, Josh?
It's Firefly in space. But yeah, it's Firefly in Star Wars. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, just about everybody has a...
Like an analog?
Yeah, an analog to somebody on Firefly.
Because then you've got the older brother that's also would be like Jane, I guess.
Yeah.
The sort of the muscle.
Well, see, I was taking Zane as, or Jane as Zeb.
That's what I said.
Okay.
That's what I said. Yeah.
You said,
I said
okay,
Zeb
yeah, I got you.
as Jane, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen Firefly, but yeah, I have heard those comparisons.
Yeah. It's definitely there, for sure.
But I think that's just, it's good character dynamics regardless of where it comes from. Because that whole idea of you're back.
You're back.
Sort of. You're.
Hey, Mike.
It's like she's in the Death Star. Yep.
I know, I'm trying.
There we go. We got that. I know I'm trying. We got that.
No, that one goes there. That one goes there.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, my laptop just shut down.
Oh, wow.
Just totally out of nowhere, so I'm on my iPad.
Fair enough. So what you missed
I have
was...
no idea why.
Well, computers hate us. That's why. Yeah. It's the curse.
Yes.
That's why I have a job, because computers hate us.
That's right. It's like computers don't like people, so people get jobs working on computers. Yes. But it's like that whole idea of a family dynamic. I mean, that's timeless. That's happened in all sorts of different contexts. So doing the Star Wars version of it, where you've got the older brother, and then you've got the middle kid, and you've got the little kid, and then you've got the droid. We didn't have a droid in my family.
That's the family dog.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that'd be the dog.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's the family cat, because the cats are smart.
The cats are smart, and they don't like the humans.
Smart.
Yep. That's exactly right.
He's so frustrated, his little fingers just go, ah!
His little...
Like, these humans are just driving me insane. I just want to fall off string.
So am I the only one that's ever watched the old movie, The Black Hole? The Disney movie? So
I love that movie.
I do too. So, Nicki, let me ask you, when Chopper has his arms out, his head arms out and up, does it sometimes remind you of Maximilian from The Black Hole? The evil robot?
It totally does. All he has to do is kind of hover.
Exactly.
And I'd be like,
yeah,
I actually have that on DVD, and I met Ernest Borgnine.
Oh, you did
several years ago. And I worked at a bookstore. He was doing a signing for his autobiography, and he was lovely, and I got to sit with him while he signed, and he kept leaning over and kissing me on the cheek. He was the loveliest man. I miss him so much. But he signed my Black Hole DVD.
Oh, that's cool.
What was that episode of MST3K he was in?
Oh,
that's awesome.
Is it the Merlin's Mystical Wonder Show?
Merlin's, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That movie creeped me out, man.
Oh, such good stuff.
So yeah, I flashed onto the Black Hole, because another great and underrated Disney film.
Yes, exactly. With a wonderful score.
I totally got the Maximilian vibe.
Okay, good. I'm not alone in the universe. That's good.
Of course, Ernest Borgnine asked if he was actually in that film.
Oh.
He's like, was I in this? And I said, yes, you were. And I explained his role. Like, oh, yeah, I remember.
I remember being that guy, yeah.
It was Escape from New York. He also was like, I was in this?
That's
like, yes, you're the cab driver. Because he signed Escape from New York.
I guess when you've had a career that long, you don't remember every role immediately. You're like, oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
I'm sure Clint Eastwood doesn't remember everything he was in.
For real.
But I like that if they are kind of paying tribute to classic sci-fi symbolism.
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're gonna have robots that kind of look maybe a little like Robbie the robot from Lost in Space, or they're gonna look like they're gonna be Star Wars-y, but also kind of remind us of classic droids or classic ships or classic weapons.
Yeah.
Like a really cool ray gun from like the original Flash Gordon or something.
Yeah. I think another thing that I've heard a lot of people, as far as the Ghost, a lot of people compare it to the Millennium Falcon, and I definitely do get that feeling, just down to the gun turns. You see like...
And the shape. I mean, the shape is more, angular, but it's rounder. Just the basic shape of the ship. I definitely, maybe it's because I'm like obsessed with the Millennium Falcon or something, but, which I am, but I definitely got a Falcon vibe off of it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks kind of, because then when you compare it to like the Imperial ship, it's just kind of day and night. I mean, it looks like, Hera's been kind of, she's been taking pretty good care of it. But down the line, it'd be nice if we see her, trying to figure it out with repairs and stuff, kind of like Han and Chewie.
Bring me the hydro spanner.
And I just love her interactions with Kanan in the cockpit. Love.
They have a great chemistry, and that's really hard to get in animated, in a lot of animes. I mean, Disney is kind of a master at developing chemistry through animation with their characters, like Rapunzel and Flynn Rider is probably the best example. But, a lot of people just it just sometimes comes off as flat, but you really get their history. You really understand that these are two people who've been doing this for a while and who've known each other, and there's a level of intimacy, whether it's romantic or friendship or what.
Yeah. Going back to the Ghost for a second, it's funny, to me, it feels like the interiors almost feel more Falcon-esque than the exterior. I mean, the exterior does, but like you say, it's the shape is more, it's whereas the Falcon is round, but then it's got the pointy front teeth and everything. Where the Ghost is more just sort of circular, almost diamondy. Exactly. But then interior-wise, I mean, I think it's a little more colorful than the Falcon on the interior. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, it feels. I really like the design of the interior. Yeah.
Yeah, it made it like that's their home. So it's and Han really wasn't someone to stick around very long in one place. So, but he didn't need much. It was just him and Chewie. So they have They have a whole it was like a really junky, not very clean bachelor pad. And where the Ghost, it's housing a family and different people, different ages, different species. So I think it definitely does have a more homey vibe to it. And there's chicks on board, and I don't want to stereotype my own gender and saying we do keep things cleaner, and we do like things a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
So if there's a throw pillow on that ship anywhere, it's either Hera or Sabine.
Oh yeah.
Or possibly Chopper. I don't know if Chopper's male or female.
Yeah, I'm guessing male on that. Although I could be wrong. But yeah, definitely bringing in the feminine energy is a nice kind of change. It's different from the all sort of boys club that sometimes Star Wars is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just Ezra. He's kind of this. He first sees Sabine, and he just kind of introduces him. Hey,
It's like, hey, what's up?
It's almost like an eye roll thing, but it's just kind of like, but Sabine just kind of puts him off. Just, get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
And he does it again,
Well, it's nice for a little boy to dream.
Yeah, and I just think it's, she's like she's super tough, she's, she's been through a lot, with the Empire, and she's our explosive expert.
And languages, too. I mean,
yes, languages.
She's pretty phenomenal, well-rounded as a character. I think that's one of the things I really responded to with this whole episode was how well-rounded these characters were already. Yeah. There's a reason for everything they do, and they are true to their characters. And even if, like when Zeb, didn't want to go back for Ezra, you could tell he was kind of fighting with himself because maybe at the beginning he didn't like the kid, but he was starting to feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
So it's also showing a lot of growth in their relationships. And that's something that's kind of rare in a lot of animated series, is to find, characters who learn from their mistakes and who have shame and who feel, have emotions.
And not just all one-dimensional, yeah.
Right, and I think he showed a lot of growth. I mean, he still, gives the kid a hard time, but I think he really likes Ezra, and he got to like him as they were doing this mission, and he actually did feel bad. He tried to maintain his tough, I don't care, just leave the kid behind, and then you saw when he blamed it on Kanan, oh, I thought it was with you.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're feeling guilty, aren't you? And I think I like that growth.
Yeah, the fact that they're not just sort of one-note, one-dimensional kind of characters, where it's sort of, like with, there's a term on TVtropes.com, I don't know if any of you ever go there, but they call it Flanderization, and it's the idea of a character becoming more of a caricature, and the trope namer being Flanders.
Diddley Ertler?
Yeah, because Ned Flanders started off as a relatively normal character, just kind of religious, and then kind of became this caricature. And the point being that can happen with characters where they maybe they start off nuanced and they turn into a caricature, but then a lot of times, especially with cartoons, unfortunately, that's just how they start off and how they stay.
Right.
So seeing the potential for depth already in the very beginning is a nice thing, and people were talking early on, and I think even with some of the reviews, it's like, it's fun, but maybe seems a little like childish or what have you. But I did not get that at all. The idea
they were killing people left and right. Are you kidding me? Childish?
Exactly.
How many stormtroopers did we lose? Though they didn't really kill anybody themselves, because even in animation, stormtroopers can't shoot to save their lives.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the most funny, it was kind of a dark humor when he's like, the stormtroopers are like, first time seeing a Jedi?
Yeah.
He kicks him right off. I mean, that was a laugh out loud, dark humor
I was
moment.
just like, oh, there's nothing as sacred. This guy, that character does.
Or even early on, when they're leaving the town, and you got Kanan on one speeder and a stormtrooper on the other, and what Kanan throws him, a thermal detonator.
Yeah.
He's like, you catch. And then boom!
Yeah, did.
The guy blows up. So
it was so just. I mean, I was like, there's a lot of dead stormtroopers for an animated series that's supposedly aimed at kids, but maybe it's not really aimed at kids so much.
Because with Clone Wars, it was a bunch of droids usually,
right.
And then you remember when Asajj Ventress rammed her lightsaber through Spike from Buffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they did that.
Well, see, here's my thing, though. It's not necessarily that this isn't aimed at kids. It's aimed at, basically the mentality we had when we were kids.
Yeah.
Because when we were kids, you had people killing people.
Things were violent.
Yeah, you had people killing people on TV. Nick and I were kind of talking about the Transformers 1986 movie. That was a movie for kids, and people died. It killed off pretty much the first season of Transformers, the first season characters. It killed them all off in 10 minutes of the movie.
G.I. Joe is a little like that too. The Transformers animated series, and when they tried to do the GoBots.
The GoBots. Sorry, I had to do it. Had to be done.
I think that was no, we're trying to sell toys, so we're gonna make this more kid friendly. But yeah, I thought I was kind of impressed by the fact that they were not afraid to show the really a darker side, and of course there's no blood because there's no blood in Star Wars.
Well, everything cauterizes in Star Wars.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I also like the fact that the characters, how they all came together. They didn't all automatically love Ezra right away. It wasn't like, oh, welcome, we love you, you're already a part of our family. They could have, okay, you're part of this crew now, let's get on. No, he had to earn it. He had to prove himself, and he still has to prove himself. Nobody's really kind of sure, except for Hera, that they want him on that ship.
Yeah. And it is interesting that she is the one that's sort of the most sort of firm on this boy needs to be with us. mean, Kanan, who's the Jedi, doesn't, even though he can tell that Ezra has some Force ability, he is not the one who's like, he must be with us. It's Hera who's kind of leading the way. I remember, in some of the pre-show interviews, they talked about how in some ways, really, Hera is the boss of the group. Even though Kanan's the Jedi, she's the one in charge. And I think we see that, in the first episode.
The pilot is always in charge.
That's right.
And I think it's pretty cool, too, because it kind of seems like, she's like, she's the one that likes Ezra and all this. And it's like she's trying to bring the Jedi out of Kanan.
Yeah.
Like she's really, really digging on the fact that, he's going to train a Jedi.
Yeah. That it's like, if I can get this kid here, then that may bring out that instinct in Kanan, and he will embrace his past a little bit more. And of course, in one of the greatest scenes in the whole episode, he does.
Yeah. That was, like I was telling Nick, that to me, when he reveals who he is, that was to me, in my personal opinion, one of the greatest moments in Star Wars, period. Like that was just really super cool.
It was a nice reveal for people who didn't know, who hadn't read everything about the show. It was like, oh,
there you
he's
go.
a Jedi. And I think you're right that Hera kind of wants him to explore that side of it, because it's not a side that he can explore safely. Yeah, and it's such a huge part of who he is.
And I think the thing is that after the Purge, and we're already, about, at least a decade after Sith, so it's like, there aren't really any Padawan. There aren't really anyone else to take up as a Padawan. So now Kanan has someone that, maybe he can train. And it was almost like either you can come with me, give the lightsaber back. Well, of course I'm going to take it anyway. I'm not just going to let you have the lightsaber.
Right. Either way, that lightsaber was going back to Kanan. So it's just
kind of like a thing where it's like, I think really everyone, Zev, I think inside he's got a heart and he wants to help someone out. But it's really, like you said, it's really Hera, that wants to help, that he probably, she has some feelings for him.
Right.
I think they're together, so.
And with Ezra, I think maybe she's got a motherly, maternal instinct going on. I hope they don't pigeonhole her into being that, because she could be so much more. But I think that she does kind of have a soft spot for him, and that could come from a maternal place, because she's not really in a position to be, a Twi'lek mommy right now.
Yeah, and I like the idea. And I like the idea that she could be both. That she can be strong, and she can be in charge, and she can be a great pilot, and in many ways the sort of strategic brains of the group, and also be maternal and nurturing and that sort of thing, because those don't have to be opposed to one another. Those things don't have to be, it's either one or the other. And I think that it's great that at least in the first episode, and then what we see in the second one, even though we're not talking about it yet, that's what we see. We see her doing both of those things. And so that's refreshing, because
it's what makes a more interesting character.
Yeah, exactly.
And
she's
a more
not just
well-rounded character.
Yeah, she's not just like, I want to talk about boys, or, I want to be a mommy. And she's not like, I hate everything. I'm the shrew. It's neither of those. It's something somewhere in the middle. So yeah, it's, I like it. But real quick, if you don't mind, going back to the sort of, Kanan revealing who he is moment, I think about it in terms of, again, the Star Wars saga as a whole. And even though, of course, Luke's the big deal. Luke's the one that's going to train and will eventually, with Anakin, bring balance to the Force and all of that. But I love this moment of Kanan sort of, here I am, because given who he is and given the context of the group that he's with, and this is going to be the rebellion, this is, in a sense, the moment.
Right.
Obviously, and we find this out again in the second episode we're not talking about yet, we find out that there are, that there are already people who have been fighting against the Empire for some time now, and of course these characters are just a part of it. But I don't know, it feels like a moment, like a moment of something is changing.
Yeah. Like this is what's needed.
Yeah, this is when now it is time to fight back, and not just to fight back for your own sake, to make some money to keep the ship running, but to fight back, putting yourself at risk because the world, or the galaxy in this case, needs this. You know, that's a great moment, and that's the sort of thing that really, typically, in some ways, you don't get in Star Wars. Like, Star Wars doesn't typically present itself with those kind of, oh yeah, here comes the moment. You know, Star Wars just doesn't do that. It's just kind of got a different way of. Like, I remember imagining what it would be like when we saw Vader in his suit for the first time. Like, you know, maybe he'll come in the door, you know, and the camera will pan up, and there'll be some, you know, a great rendition of Vader's theme, you know, almost sort of like the dark equivalent of the last panel from Star Wars Return of the Jedi Infinities. You know, just the kind of, oh yeah moment. But then, how does he actually, what's it actually like the first time we see Vader? No! You know, he's awkward. But that makes more sense from a plot standpoint. But the point is, so Star Wars doesn't typically give you that "oh yeah" moment, but they did there. Yeah. It didn't feel crazy out of character for Star Wars, but it was just a really nice moment. And as being a huge fan of the Jedi, that was a great thing, and especially given that it was kind of all bookend with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right. Right. I love how Kanan, he really did burn a line in the sand there with his lightsaber and said, "Come and get me," and it showed. The Jedi aren't extinct. Yeah. Their light has not been extinguished. Because there's this one, and we know that there's Obi-Wan, we know that there's Yoda because we know the trilogy, but does this mean there are more?
Yeah.
And it's really putting a lot of pressure on Kanan to come out because he's like saying, yeah, we're not gone. You will have to deal with us.
Yeah.
And we're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stand with my stand with my lightsaber and I will take you on. And I thought that was a brilliant moment. Yeah. Like you said. I thought it was just like, oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they have like this I kind of, thought it was cool that it was like, we have this 22 pickup. So it's just one of those kind of, this is one of those kind of things where, kind of a backup plan. I think they always have. So I'm guessing like in some situations where, the plan isn't going all right, and they kind of have to improvise. And this is one of those times where he just has to pull his lightsaber out. And of course he has those little two pieces, so only he knows how to put it together like that. And I think it's just one of those times that, and we definitely do see Agent Callus, we can talk about him, but, probably one of the first times you see the lightsaber, if the first, you never know.
I love Callus. I'm sorry. I think he's a great character.
So far, he seems more interesting to me than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah. He is so deliciously kind of evil, but not quite evil, but he just is like, he's
the Diet
so
Coke of evil.
That's right.
Yes, he's enjoying it. He like revels in the bad stuff, like when he kicked that poor stormtrooper.
That was a great moment.
That was like, I was like, oh my god. It was just like, oh, I'm going to like you. And I'm going to like seeing you get put in your place. But there is something about, Grand Moff mutton chops that I just really connected with. And not like because I'm like that.
Yeah, sure, Nicki. We know the truth.
Yeah, I'm the one with the Rebel Alliance tattoos. So.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's just an act.
Well, don't tell my 501st Garrison.
That's right. They don't want to know that.
No.
She's a traitor.
But I really kind of connected with that character because I like characters that are like that are kind of cartoonish in a way, but no pun intended. But I really just enjoyed every minute he was on the screen, and the voice actor is like perfect, and I was just like, I was mesmerized by the sideburns, and I don't know. I think I'm gonna have a crush on this one.
I wonder. Yeah. I hope go ahead, John.
And of course, near the end, of course, we saw, him going to the Inquisitor, telling him how. And it looks like, and this is kind of one of those situations where, you don't really need to go to someone familiar with the Force, unless you really, because the Inquisitor, in these kind of situations where it's like, he doesn't really need to go to the Inquisitor if it's, something just about a group of rebels, but he needs to go if it involves a Jedi. And now, more people know that Kanan's a Jedi, and that there's going to be some people, keeping track of this ghost, some people kind of keeping their eyes open. So, and I heard the Inquisitor episode is not the next one, but I think the next one I heard. So
that'd be good.
4.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
I hope he's an interesting character. I think that in some ways he's not a Sith, and I think the website makes it a point to be clear this dude is not a Sith. But still, I mean, he's dark side of the Force. I almost feel like that character now is the one that there's more of a chance could just sort of be your sort of one-dimensional sort of thing. But now Jason Isaacs is awesome, and I think he's a great casting choice to play the villain. This guy. So I hope that the Inquisitor ends up being a fascinating kind of character. I mean, he probably will be. Too. But because I feel like obviously we haven't seen him much, so he's kind of the least developed of the main characters, and
just because we don't know.
Right. I mean, we got him in one scene. I think Sabine is next in terms of the least amount of development. Just because I feel like there was more of an arc for Zeb. And everybody else on the Ghost too, than for her. I mean, she did stuff, but she didn't seem to have an arc the same way that everybody else did. Except Hera. Hera didn't have an arc either, but Hera was the sort of plot motivator, really. Right. So
I think Sabine, because she wears that mask a lot, I think it might be she doesn't show a lot of herself. Maybe that might be a reason why we don't know, or it's because we haven't had enough time with her, because we really haven't. And as for Jason Isaacs, I'm sorry, I'm having a fangirl moment. Because I'm a huge Harry Potter fanatic, and
that's right. He was in Harry Potter, wasn't he?
He was Lucius Malfoy, and he plays evil so beautifully and nuanced. And I'm looking forward to meeting him in this capacity, and I think he will be very much a multidimensional. Not just the twirling his mustache, bad guy.
Does he have a mustache?
No, I'm just, it's a metaphor.
It's a figure of speech.
The old school silent films, the bad guy would have the handlebar mustache and he'd twirl it as he was tying the damsel in distress to the railroad tracks, kind of thing.
Did any of y'all see The Patriot?
Yeah.
Because, he was the bad guy in that.
Yeah.
And was... Those eyes that were just like pure blue icy evil. Obviously, we won't see his eyes in the show because they'll be red, but,
He was also Captain Hook in a live-action version of Peter Pan, and he was brilliant. And if you haven't seen it, it's called the series called The State Within. He plays the British ambassador to the United States. Highly recommend it. It is such an amazing series.
He was also in The Tuxedo with Jackie Chan and Jennifer Love Hewitt.
That's right.
It was a good movie.
And he was a good guy.
Brilliant. He was in it very briefly.
Yes, but he was good.
And he also played a drag queen in Sweet November.
Now, see, I have not seen the Sweet November, and now I'm afraid to.
No. He is the only good part of it. I will say that because he's a great actor, but it's a Keanu Reeves film.
Whoa.
That's not action.
Whoa.
That's not action or comedy. It's Keanu trying to do drama. So
I thought he did a pretty good job in The Lake House, but that also involves time travel, so
that's
maybe
awesome.
I love that movie. You have a dog? I have a dog. Sorry.
I totally fell out of my suit of armor.
Don't be dead, dude. Sorry, you stop us or we'll quote the whole movie. Welcome to San Diego.
Stop. Star Wars.
Whoa.
So what did you guys think of Chopper?
Yeah, I love Chopper.
Yeah, he's definitely I think Zeb is my favorite, but Chopper for me is like a close behind. I mean, he just kind of has this, from those little featurettes about Chopper, he's just kind of this old little droid who, he's kind of stubborn and, very cranky, and somehow, half the crew of the Ghost can understand him.
Yeah, what's that all about? Suddenly people can understand Astromech.
Yeah.
When did this
happen? Maybe they're responding to the tone, he sounds pissed.
They teach it in high school. That's what it is.
That's right, Imperial High School.
If you can learn Wookiee, then you can learn.
That's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 boop, boop.
I mean, Anakin, said he, kind of understood R2.
Well, he used the Force.
But
that could be why Kanan understands, because he used the Force. And Luke understood R2 sometimes.
Yep.
Or he was going based off of, the very, petulant beeps coming out of that little astromech.
But I always love how you have the character who's like, what is he saying? How do you guys know what he's saying? Just kind of like playing the part of like us. From our
how can you pull that off? Yeah.
That's not what he said.
Stewie in the first two or three seasons of Family Guy. It's like, nobody understood what he was saying.
I always wondered if Luke just sort of like, it was a force thing that allowed him to kind of get what R2 was saying, but he didn't realize it was. Like, it was just kind of like that. It sounds to me like he's saying this, but it's actually because the force was kind of helping him to see that that's what R2's saying.
It was his translation circuit, like the TARDIS has.
Exactly.
That if you're on the TARDIS, you're connected to it, and then you can understand every language.
His universal translator.
Yes, the force is a universal translator.
That's right.
Yeah. And maybe that's why Sabine is such a good translator. Maybe we don't know. Maybe she is force sensitive as well.
Not with that hair. I don't know.
Well, Yoda, hello.
Well, that's true. That was some hair right there. Yeah.
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Oh, poor Ki-Adi-Mundi needs to leave Yoda alone. I think that Yoda has turned to the dark side. Sorry, I'm still hung up on that from the last official episodes of the Clone Wars. Ki-Adi-Mundi just kept going on and on and on about how, probably Yoda's just being seduced by the dark side. That's probably all that's happening right here.
I really have a vendetta against Yoda.
It's like,
calm down, Beldar.
He died.
So ha.
And Yoda lived till he was 900. But yeah, like, at least Yoda didn't get killed by a bunch of clones.
That's right. On a snowy, ashy planet.
Yeah.
Oh, episode 3. Love it.
So another thing I guess I'd like to mention is the mention of Kessel. And in the previous, we always talk about the Kessel run. I run the Kessel run, and 2 point, what was it?
Less than 12 parsecs.
It's less than 12 parsecs, and it's just like, so he finally, reached Kessel, right? The Kessel run. The Spice Mines of Kessel.
I was very excited to finally put a place to the name, and just like, oh my god, we're going to Kessel.
Yeah, we're going to get the coolest thing ever.
I want to get some spice. Maybe the guys from Doom will be...
The spice must flow.
I kept expecting half of the Dune cast to show up with their...
Exactly. It's the Fremen! Oh no, it's a Fremen! Run! And what are the Mentats? Isn't that
Mentats.
The Mentats?
Yeah.
With the blue mouths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
From all the spice.
I thought it... that's one of the reasons I love the potential of this show is like, we get to see Kessel. I mean, what else? Are we ever going to see Dantooine? Are we going
Dantooine.
Are we ever going to see Corellia? There are places that I want to see.
Yeah, we really need to see Corellia. I'm with you on that one. And I wonder, like, if we do see, like, Dantooine, will it look like Dantooine has looked in the EU kind of stuff? Because really, Dantooine and Lothal kind of look similar because they're both that kind of grassy sort of deal.
Yeah, I always think of Knights of the Republic when I think of Dantooine.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, exactly. So it'll be neat to go to those places and the places that have been depicted in some EU sort of thing. Right. Would they go with that, or is the official real look going to be somewhat different? It'll be interesting to see.
We're gonna go to Dathomir.
Yeah.
There's just so many planets, and there's so many places that the Empire has reached, and some places it hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Atlas of Planets. It's a huge book.
Oh, and while we're talking about things we would like for them to show at some point, can I get some love for Dash Rendar?
Yeah.
I would like to see some Dash Rendar and some Outrider. I don't necessarily care about his robot, Lebo, or not Lebo.
I still say you could. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with him taking everything with the EU and throwing it completely out. But if they ever wanted to make an animated Shadows of the Empire, I'd be perfectly fine with it.
I read somewhere recently that, not necessarily that this information is recent, but I just came across it recently. But and I couldn't find any sourcing on it, but that said that George claimed back during the time of Shadows of the Empire all happening, that if he had the idea for that story back in the day, he'd have made a movie out of it. Like, that's how much he liked that.
Yeah, it was good.
So, I mean,
it was one of the few things he read because he wasn't one to read the novels. Yeah. I mean, he just kind of was like, you do what you want, and it's not going to count, but do what you want.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing him say that about Shadows and how, wow, that was a really great story. And the characters that were created in that story were very unique to Star Wars. And like,
well, and it was the
are we going to see Shizor or something?
Yeah.
I am not for that. I did not like Shizor.
Really?
I did not like Shizor. I don't like Shizor.
And now for 2 hours they're going to go back and forth. I like Shizor. I don't like Shizor. That's right.
Well,
He was a jerk.
It was the one EU story that I was like, okay, that feels totally 100% like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Not 80 or 20 or 10.
Or 3 Kevin J. Anderson. Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Kevin.
Yeah,
His Young Jedi Academy trilogy books were pretty good.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't really fully read, so I say some of these things in jest. But yeah, and
No,
then
trust me.
you're like reading about like, and they had this thing called the Sun Crusher, and this other thing, and it was just like this other poor man's Death Star.
Yeah.
You know, it's like let it go, let it go, let it go. You know,
Yeah.
do something else.
A lot of that, you know, I met him at a Dragon Con a couple of years ago, and his wife was there. And I'd met him at a book expo, in the big book expo in LA, and his wife is somebody who writes with him, and she's very, how shall we say, pushy. And so I don't know how much of that was him and how much of that was her, because if you read stuff, like he wrote some for the X-Files, he wrote some other sci-fi, and it's a lot different than the Star Wars stuff. So and she co-wrote the Jedi Academy trilogy.
So you're sort of envisioning a scenario where like they're sitting in their bedroom.
I want to do that.
She's like breaking his legs like in Misery.
Put a Death Star in there.
Well, I was at the booth, and I was talking to Kevin J. Anderson, who I love as a sci-fi writer, and my best friend and I were there, and he's signing these books for us, and she said, and to somebody else who was next to us, and she said, do you want it, what's the name do you want it signed to? And he said, oh no, I don't need it personalized. And he said, oh, are you going to sell it on eBay? And I'm like,
Wow.
This guy goes to every convention. He goes to, every book thing you can possibly imagine. I don't think there's a shortage of Kevin J. Anderson autographs out there.
There you go.
And I don't know. I think he wanted to give it to you as a gift, and he didn't know who to yet or something.
It's like, what if I did want to sell it on eBay? That's my prerogative.
Yeah. And it was like,
I'm not going to get rich off of it. So
we were there. We wanted the experience of talking to him as writers, and he was lovely and charming and so helpful. Gave us some great advice and great sites to visit. But she was, no.
Honey, if you do not put a Death Star in that novel.
Well, we can't say Death Star. Well, make it something that's similar to the Death Star.
I don't know, Death Star, Star, Sun. Something with the word sun in it. But, someone's going to crush people. There, Sun Crusher. Write it down. Write it down. You're spelling it wrong.
There's some parts of the EU I would love to see, and there's some parts of it that I could say, no. Go bye-bye. I'm glad that a lot of it was jettisoned. But I'm going to miss some parts of it. Or I guess we can't call it the EU anymore. We're calling it Legends.
Legends, that's right. Legends are often
stupid
not
as
true
calling
at all.
mutants miracles.
Do what? Huh?
Oh, in the Marvel universe.
Oh, yeah.
The
Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Oh, yeah.
They're miracles. And on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., their mutants are called gifted.
Mm-hmm.
They can't use mutant because it's owned by 20th Century Fox for the X-Men.
That is redonkulous.
Yeah.
Agreed.
As far as something that kind of looms over you, just like from the beginning of the episode, the little I forget what species it was, but he kind of remembers. I remember before your ships showed up.
Right.
And the whole thing about
the fruit selling guy.
Yeah, how they have to. Apparently, a lot more rules are set up. And you have the stereotypical heavyset guy that's just chowing down on the fruit and the food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just
I will say, as a plus size young lady, we do not always just sit around chowing down on food. We do it sometimes, but not all the time.
Not all the time. But I think it was neat seeing the sort of day in, day out, mid to lower level, empire bureaucrats. Yeah. And just sort of how it really was just, like the vibe sometimes you get, and they'll have characters like this in TV shows and movies. It's, I guess, one of those cliches, but like the small town, good old boy cops that abuse their authority. That's
not Andy and Barney.
Not Andy and Barney, because they would never do that.
No, the guys who hike up their belts.
Just what you doing over here now? That sort of thing.
It's cool to see life going on, but then knowing that you have this, the bureaucracy of the Empire, it's like the bureaucratic office that Hermes works for in Futurama. It's just like paperwork. Yeah. And they're constantly, new rules for this, rules for that. It's like, do I have to fax you the new memo on TPS reports again? It's like everything is so regimented.
Yeah.
And it just makes me, think about the end of, Return of the Jedi is like, well, how many outposts with these imperial bureaucrats are still out there that have no idea what happened?
Right.
I'm like, they're just still going about their business, and one day someone says, by the way, the Emperor's been dead for 10 years.
It's like, what? Well, who's been getting all these faxes?
But I have things that need to be signed.
We need this in triplicate. I don't care if he's dead. Raise him from the dead. Bring him back. Clone him.
Can you imagine the paperwork for having to file that the Emperor died? I was like, the stamping, the rubber stamping going on.
It's like, this is horrible. It would probably be easier, yes. Just bring him back. That way we don't have to do the paperwork. Maybe Luke could kind of turn evil too. I'm just
spitballing here. Are we sure
here.
There's no clone? Because, he was really into the cloning thing.
That's right. Oh, which, by the way, the stormtroopers are not clones. Obviously.
No, because they all had different voices.
Yeah,
some
different
of them
voices.
Didn't sound very smart.
No, they didn't. And none of them sounded New Zealandish.
Sounded like some of my old surfer buddies. And I was just like, ooh, hello. I was like, but I liked that because even in the films, they all kind of sounded the same.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that.
Close the blast doors.
Basically, they're the police officers, so you're going to recruit from what you have.
Right.
Who knows where they're getting their recruits, because it's kind of like indentured servitude for the Empire for the most part.
You want to kill in a white suit? Sign up.
That's right. Have we got a job for you?
Stormtrooper. You're going to be a scout trooper. You're going to be an AT-AT driver. But I don't want to be an AT-AT driver. Too bad.
Let me ask you a question. Can you shoot well with a blaster? Nope. Then you're a stormtrooper, sir.
You're hired. Perfect.
Are you great at aiming? Okay, then you drive the AT-AT.
Yeah. People who have good eyesight drive. People who don't become stormtroopers and are given large blaster rifles.
It's the Empire at work.
Yes, exactly. Rubber stamp it.
And the stormtroopers also aren't the smartest. So, Ezra, of course, you kind of have that cliche of like, and everyone comes in, and Ezra's hiding. And just throughout this episode, you see, especially when he's kind of on his own, away from the group, he kind of finds these different ways to sneak around, like from the beginning of like, for sir, a little thing, and then he kind of grabs the mic,
right.
Then he starts like
he knows what he's doing. He's a smart kid. That just showed me that how not to underestimate that kid. And because he had some brains on him, and he knows the stormtroopers are not very bright. And it doesn't sound like this planet got a whole lot of the brightest of the bunch.
No, I still think, I think anyone would be confused, but, haven't you ever seen a hairless Wookiee? That's definitely one of my favorite things in this episode, and they just do look kind of confused, but you don't really know what their expressions are, but you don't really have to.
I've seen a Wookiee, period.
Right.
Some of these people, they knew he wasn't a Wookiee, apparently, but it's just kind of a, and apparently Zeb, I'm going to learn a little more about him later, about his hatred for the Empire. It's just like this, he's wearing a bucket, like that's like near the end, he's like, why did you hit me? You're wearing a bucket, and I think that was another cool, I just love this interaction between Ezra and Zeb. It's great.
Yeah, I think they have that love-hate relationship going on.
And it was definitely, I think, unexpected,
Yeah. He wasn't, I liked him from the shorts, the short versions we saw. I thought he was going to be a really good character. Love the voice acting. And I was really happy that they're not making him just the tough, and they're not making him just the furball, who's nice to everybody unless you beat him at Sabacc or Space Challengers.
Yeah.
Jajaric.
Yeah, and speaking of Jajaric table, that was on the Ghost. In the same kind of little
alcove,
little bench. Yeah, little alcove.
I think that that's probably standard on certain models, and maybe they bought the shit from Lando.
Hey, that would be neat. Like, they've got to get it serviced at one point, and they're like, well, let's go take it to the guy that we got it from. And he's like, what have you done to my ship? Oh, my. Not that, I don't know why he said, oh, my.
Oh, my.
He's like, I'm kind of like Sulu.
How you doing?
Yeah, how you doing?
Zeb? So, how you doing, Chewbacca?
Exactly.
And there's some Colt 45 in the fridge.
That's right,
so
Colt
they can
45.
figure out a copy of Mahogany in the DVD player.
That's right. Yep. I mean, there was nothing really in the entire episode that I watched and thought, I wish they had done that differently. I mean, there just really wasn't anything where, from a design standpoint, from a music standpoint, from a voice actor standpoint, I know we haven't really talked about that much, but I mean, I think all of the voice actors have done a great job. My wife is a big fan of Freddie Prinze Jr., and so she's excited for the show just for that reason right there. But it's funny, if you've seen a Freddie Prinze Jr. movie or TV show or something, and then you hear him, like, he's definitely getting a little bit more bass in his voice. So it's almost like, what, is that really him? But I mean, it is. But I think, like, he did a great job. Well, I was, all of them have. There was nobody where, from a voice acting standpoint, I thought,
nobody I thought they could have cast better.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. I would like to see some of our some of the great voice actors out there, like John DiMaggio, or they do Steve Bloom, who is the voice of Zeb.
He's actually also some of the Stormtroopers.
Right, and and James Arnold Taylor, who we have as Obi-Wan, and I'm hoping maybe they create a character for him to voice, because he's so good at that, and he's the first one to tell you. I've been to several conventions, and he likes to talk about himself. He's a nice man, but yeah, I was wondering for D. Bradley Baker, or, some of these guys who are classic, voiceover actors would ever show up, because they're so versatile. But I agree with you, Josh. I think that the voice acting was really spot on, and every voice suited that character.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you had somebody with a high-pitched, squealy pig voice doing Zeb, it just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Or Klaus the goldfish, from American Dad, that voice wouldn't have worked in this atmosphere, but they all did.
Yep, it was well done.
Yep, I agree completely.
So I mean, I think, I also enjoyed it. I think as far as Zeb goes, like I said, Steve Bloom, he's more. He's a veteran in the anime world. Not so much anymore, but he's a veteran now. He's doing stuff like Star Wars Rebels and games and stuff. But but if you hear, it's kind of. I mean, I just know the Stormtroopers for him just from his voice, because that's like the Stormtroopers. That's his actual real voice versus Zeb, not his voice at all. So pretty cool.
I love the accent that Zeb has.
And I think. And we do see later in the episode, let's see, is this the episode where they're actually on that planet and he fights with the staves? I'm trying to think.
That's the next one. That's the droids.
Yeah, it's all...
Don't talk about it!
Alright, so, I think that's... Any final thoughts, you guys?
Loved it. Can't wait for more.
Yep, I'm excited. It's great to have Star Wars on TV again. Which, just a few years ago, the thought of Star Wars on TV at all would have been mind-blowing, but it's nice to have more of it, so I'm excited.
Yep.
Cool. Yep. Okay, so I think we'll go and close this one out. Finally, Spark of the Rebellion, everyone, the whole crew is here, and, their own little family, so I think we definitely got some, next couple of years, we got some good stuff coming.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Nicki, what kind of social media do you have?
What kind of social media don't I have?
Twitter.
Lots of it. I'm on Twitter at iHeartCoulson, and Tumblr is punkrockzebra.tumblr.com, and if you're a fan of Agent Coulson, it's agentcoulsonsarmy.tumblr.com.
And Nick and Josh?
We've got, of course, the Inner Dorkdom, innerdorkdom.com, and then we're on the Twitter, on the Facebook, all at just look for the Inner Dorkdom, and you will find us. Isn't that right, Josh?
That's right.
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, and I'm at JEBell49er, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Ready Free Indoor. I always post. Me and Nicki post articles and tweet articles like all the time. Several times a day.
When there's something to post.
Yeah, even if it's kind of a pathetic rumor, I'll post it.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
From the the Latino Review. So okay, so until next time, I'm Jonathan.
Nicki.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Josh.
And thanks for listening.
Y'all be good now.
May the force be with you.
Always.
A New Hope.
There you go.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.